Yo, what's poppin', guys? Sizzyl here. Welcome to another episode of the Grill Podcast, and this time we're going to talk about Pokemon, just kind of everything around it, merchandise, games, designs, etc. And with that out of the way, I'm going to go cut to the episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. So I'm Sizzyl. I'm a YouTuber who makes this podcast, obviously, and yeah, game reviews and stuff.
I'm Absalom. I do a lot of shiny hunting on Twitch.tv. Also do some YouTube stuff as well.
I'm XYZ Cruncher, also known as Hunter. I guess I'm just a game reviewer who probably takes himself a little too seriously, and I'm a big fan of Pokemon. Yeah.
Nice. I'm Cream the Phoenix. That's my YouTube channel name. I started a Shiny Living Dex challenge, and that's pretty much my thing now, I guess. And I make little videos on the YouTube.
All right. Well, with the intros out of the way, let's start with the first question. What got you into Pokemon, if you do remember it all?
Basically, for as long as I can remember, I've been into Pokemon. When I was really young, maybe 6 or 7 years old, my mum, obviously you don't really have many memories before that age, do you? So my mum kind of reminded me, she was like, oh, well, when you were like 3 or 4, you were really, really into Pokemon. Those like plushies you have all over your room. Like, I just thought they were regular plushies. I had like a Psyduck, I had a Pidgeot or two. And I was kind of like, I did look at the tags and I clocked it said Pokemon on it, but I didn't really know what it was because I don't think in the UK at least, I think it was in between Gen 3 and Gen 4 at the time. So there was an extended break with the anime. So I was busy watching SpongeBob and other stuff. So it's not like I had any of the games or any trading cards or anything other than those plushies. So that was sort of my first exposure to Pokemon. And my mum reminded me, yeah, there's actually a show there's a show based on those, or those plushies are based off of a show. And you were super obsessed with Wild. Or when you were younger, rather. And basically after that, I started watching it on TV once the Diamond and Pearl anime started airing. And then following that, I got a DS and I played Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. I was absolutely obsessed with that game. Then after that, the first main series game, and I basically fell in love after that. Basically, Pokemon was on my mind all day and every day for the next decade plus. So yeah.
Well, I remember pretty clearly. I was about 5 or 6. This would have been in like 2004-ish. I was, a tiny child, and my older brother, who was like in his teens at the time, introduced me to Pokemon Ruby on an emulator of all things. I didn't have a Game Boy or anything, but he set me up with Ruby on my my family computer. And I was really, really, really into it. I started watching the TV show because I was airing at the time. Pokemon had a little resurgence in my particular school since I was like the Ruby Sapphire era, and all the kids were into it. Even though it wasn't the original sort of like late 90s Pokemon craze, it was pretty popular in my school, and I started getting the cards and stuff, and then eventually. A couple of years later, I got my DS Lite for Christmas, got Pokemon Diamond, and just went from there. I just completely followed the series, got every single game afterwards. Even long after people had stopped caring in my school and stuff, I was still playing it into high school and stuff. I was that weird kid, and I just kept going from there. I haven't really stopped. I guess with the very modern stuff, I kind of play the main series a bit less, but I'm still definitely playing the older stuff. Obviously, I'm doing, Living Dex in Gen 6, so I'm not playing Violet so much anymore. But I have it, so yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's not as these long heartfelt stories. It's like I grew up with Pokemon, everyone around me had it, whatever. It was just. I had a cousin at some point who I guess wanted to sell us stuff before going to college or something, and he just gave me his Game Boy and a few games, and that included I think 3 copies of Ruby, 1 copy of Sapphire, and 1 of Emerald, and then 1 of Leaf Green. And out of all those, for some reason, I picked Leaf Green, and that's why I played. And then from there, I mean, that was like my first video game system. I just came across it that way. And I got addicted to the series, and hasn't really stopped too much since.
Wow, all these stories make me feel really old. So my first like Game Boy game was Pokemon Gold, and I had the like old like DMG, you know, the gray Game Boy with like the purple buttons and stuff. And my first Pokemon game was Pokemon Gold, and it must have been when I was like 4 or 5 because I didn't know how to read at the time, and I think Pokemon sort of taught me how to read. If that makes sense. I'd always ask my mom, like, what does this word mean? Like, it was potion or whatever. And it's like, oh, what does this word mean? It's like antidote. That's like a cure for poison. I was like, oh,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
remember
wild,
that
though.
too. I had like no idea what a lot of the words were in Ruby. I was just like, what the hell does this mean?
What does it mean?
That's insane, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was the same for me. Yeah, I was when I played. Sorry to cut you guys off. When I played
Okay.
Blue Rescue Team, it's obviously like the Rescue Team games in particular. They're a little more mature, so they had those words where they were slightly more advanced than like elementary, primary school age like kid would know. So I learned a lot of words like universal and stuff like that from the Mystery Dungeon game. So yeah, I'm in a similar boat to Cream, but just I was a little older at that point. I think I was maybe 8, 9.
That's pretty wild. I don't think I learned any. I don't know. I grew up for the longest time with no anything electronic. I think my parents just decided that, and honestly, that's probably a good thing. So I didn't have that level of experience, but that's wild to hear about. I mean, I feel like that definitely, especially nowadays, it's going to happen more and more because video games are so like mainstream now. But kind of in the same like sphere of what we were talking about, though. I know Absalom obviously mentioned to some degree. Do you prefer like the older games or the newer games in the Pokemon series?
So what do you mean by older? Are you talking about like, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, or like
It's
all the way back?
It really depends on what you think that is. It could mean, right, Game Boy games before they added like
Right.
full colored sprites. It could mean when they went from 2D to 3D, or it could even just mean like Nintendo Switch versus everything else. Just kind of your own interpretation. You could maybe even explain that if you want.
Yeah. So I think my favorite Pokemon game right now is Black 2. Been playing a lot of Gen 5. I'm a huge Gen 5 stan.
Yeah, boy.
It rocks.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
My heart will always lie with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, or like even Gold. I thought it was
That's
crazy
fair.
that you got to do all 16 badges in Gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
So-
I remember, like, back to childhood stuff yet again. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Pokeathlon. I used to grind that shit. I don't know why that was the one aspect, but the Pokeathlon, yeah, that was like my life for like a few months.
Yeah.
Got really good at it.
Pokéathlon goes very
It's
hard.
so
I agree.
fun.
Yeah.
I remember we would always have this like run that we do after lunch in school, and we'd always give the one kid that did like multiple laps all of our Pokewalkers.
Yeah.
So he'd like rack up the steps on our Pokewalkers for like he'd have like 20 Pokewalkers on him at one time. But
And what's
that
funny
was
is
fond memory.
I had obviously Pokewalker, it came with the game, but I never realized it could connect to the game.
Oh my God.
I used it as a separate thing, and then by the time I realized, wait a minute, I could actually import this into the game, it was way too late, and it was long lost for years at that point.
Oh, rip.
Oh, you missed out on like the best part of the game.
I mean, hey, the normal Pokewalker was fun as hell to use just outside of the game too, so whatever. There was like battles and not battles. I don't remember the full specifics. I just remember there's a lot of stuff I did with it.
Well, Heart Gold Soul Silver came out when I started high school, so I had my Pokewalker around in high school. So I was around the people who were transitioning to adults, and I'm here with my little fucking Pokemon Tamagotchi just running around the school. It was great time.
It's actually interesting. Like I don't remember where I read or saw this, but at the time the Pokewalker came out, like for the step counter type of thing, like the movement tracker, it was like the most advanced technology at that moment when it released.
Yeah, it was the most like accurate pedometer at the time.
Yeah, that's what it
So
was. There you go. Which is
Yeah, you can't pull
hilarious.
that thing. I used to try and like shake it to get my steps up. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
Speaking about new versus old, I'm definitely more on the side of old. I try not to be too like rose tinted about it. Like obviously, I'm gonna have a soft spot for the older games because that was when I was a kid. But I do definitely think that the newer stuff, kind of in the Switch era, has kind of lost its way a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, just with a lot of stuff like with the national dex cuts and the kind of just drop in general quality of the main series.
not as
I
polished.
Quality, performance, everything kind of.
definitely. I'm more of a 2D kind of guy. I feel like Gen 4, Gen 5 is kind of where it peaked, and it's been kind of steadily downhill since then.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. In terms of new versus old, for me, I'm probably going to do this a lot, so forgive me for that, but I'm going to reference the content I've done on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
As you'd know, Sizzyl, I've reviewed every main series Pokemon game up until this point.
Yep.
So I've had to. It's one thing I pride taking an objective look at every game I review, even ones I love, like a lot of the Pokemon games, and taking away that kind of as much as you can. Being a human, everything you experience is subjective, but trying to be objective as possible away that subjective lens. I have noticed the massive drop in quality in the newer games, and I'm one of the biggest X and Y haters because not only is a game in of itself in like a vacuum a very poor game, it's or a Pokemon game by other franchises standards, it might be one of the best, but for Pokemon, especially what we'd had up until that point, I think it's poor. But basically, it was I hate it for that reason, but also because it was the start of the end, in my opinion. It was the start of the downfall. I'm one of the few people who actually like Sun and Moon, so I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, I love Heart Gold and Soul Silver and Emerald so much, and all these new games are so shit. No, that's idiotic. Every game, I think, maybe other than X and Y that's come after it, has had redeeming qualities. Legends Arceus with its exploration and kind of active battle system, half active, half turn based. Same with Scarlet and Violet, and obviously Sun of the 3D titles is the strongest. So while I do prefer the older games, I am one to accept the merits of the newer 3D games because, again, I try to be objective with everything I do, and even if I'm not reviewing a game, I try and when I'm playing a game, I try and step back and look at are there positives, are there negatives, is there something redeeming about this? And I found with a lot of the 3D games, some people are being a little too harsh with them, but it's not completely misguided. There are a lot of drawbacks, and there is a noticeable lack of quality or lack of time in the oven, as it were.
Yeah, I'm definitely, you guys are like, well, sometimes like 3D, I try to not have nostalgia. No, for me, I 100% prefer 2D. It's not even, like, I'm not going to say like I even like a lot of the 3D at all. I will say I did play Sun Moon. I did like that game, but I still think Gens 3 to 5 were way better, including the Gen 1 and 2 remakes. I guess if you want to include Gen 1 2 that way, like Fire Red, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, then Gen 1 through 5 were way better than Gen 6 through 9. Right.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna. Don't get me wrong. 2D Pokemon way fucking better. It's not very close.
It's just, I don't know. There's a certain charm to it. I feel like the problem with 3D is it becomes like more. It in your brain is more realistic. So when things are off, they're really off. Versus 2D, it's like already off to begin with. So you just use your imagination to fill in the gaps.
Yeah. The weird part about like 3D Pokemon is they've shown they can do good 3D with like Coliseum and
Yeah. No, with
XD, Battle Revolution, all
Battle
those sort of
Revolution
games.
100. If the games look like Battle Revolution, I might have actually preferred 3D. But,
Yeah.
they don't. They don't. I don't know if they ever will.
But they're so like dry and flat, and like when you're battling, especially, there's like no camera movement, and it just feels
there's the one clip that
Yeah.
always gets me every time where there's it's like Floatzel or Weasel or whatever, where they use Roar, and he turns around and shakes his ass. And people put like a fart sound effect, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I had that when I first played through Brilliant Diamond, because I used the Floatzel, and whenever it uses like water gun or something, it just shoots it out of its ass.
Yeah, it's particularly, I don't know, for some reason the fart edits were funny for me, but anyway. While we're still kind of talking about just the games themselves, what are your thoughts on the remakes or remasters, whatever you want to call them?
For me personally, it kind of goes back to what I guess pretty much all of us said. The Undeniable Peak has the best remakes. Gen, maybe you want to call it gens 1 to 5 or 3 to 5. Either way, the remakes, the remakes that came out in that period are obviously the best, the most care. You could argue that maybe Fire Red and Leaf Green pale in comparison to Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but they're still great remakes which completely replace the originals. That can't really be said for Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. And I was trying to think if we've had any Gen 5. Yeah, we haven't had Gen 5 yet.
No, hopefully never, honestly. I know it's like a weird take, but I'm genuinely hoping they never remake Gen 5 because they're butchering everything right now.
It's coming.
I know it's coming. I'm just hoping they stick to their
remake
15
Gen 5,
Gen
but
1
after
remakes.
seeing Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, maybe less now.
I think honestly the future of Gen 5 and all the good Pokemon games are going to be in Pokemon mods, because like there's this really cool mod someone did where it's like Gen 5 type graphics, but with the Gen 4 engine and everything.
I've seen this.
Yeah.
I think I'm following them on Twitter.
Dude, I am following them on Twitter too. It's every time they post, I'm like, dude, holy shit! They like backport all those new stuff into the game and everything. It looks sick. You have your follow Pokemon that look completely normal, not out of place. It's like I don't know. I think 2D Pokemon just a better experience.
Yeah. It's like you said. There's an awesome like level of charm to it. It's just I'm a big fan of 2D graphics in general anyway, so I agree with you guys on that one.
I just feel like with 2D sprites you can put so much more personality and like detail into Pokemon. Like if you look at for example Tropius, if you look at his sprites from like Gen 3 to 5, he's so like animated and like he's got a lot of personality and stuff. And then you look at his Gen 6 model, he's just like hovering in the air and he's looking real sad
there. Yeah.
Okay, so I think you can add a lot of charm and personality to 3D sprites. They've done that. I'm gonna bring up like XD and Coliseum again because
for me it's that one on the Wii.
Yeah, Battle Revolution.
Battle Revolution is so. Yeah. I think that one was peak.
So good.
I think that was peak.
I think those 3D models have a ton of like personality. I agree that like you can add a lot more with 2D sprites. I totally agree, but I just think their 3D models that they're making now are just sort of bland. Like no.
Yeah.
They just stand there. It's a problem.
Yeah. They're just kind of lazy. I think.
Yeah, lazy. That's good word.
Yeah, they could definitely make the animations a lot better. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to reel us back into the remasters thing, though. I really liked Fire Red Leaf Green. Obviously, I've already said I really liked Heart Gold Soul Silver. I've played the original Gen 1 and 2 games at least one time all the way through, after the fact, and there's no comparison. Like the thing with a remake or remaster, it's supposed to be the original but better. And I think my big problem with ORAS is you can't say that. I don't think anyone could say that ORAS first off, has everything the original has and then makes it better. That's what made Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and Fire Red Leaf Green so good. They had all the original content from the original games, with tons of improvements and also bonus content, because if you're remaking, you have a lot of extra dev time to add stuff like that, like the Sevi Islands and Pokeathlon and just all that, all that stuff. And I don't know, I think like with the new remakes, it's just not good. Like especially with the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, it was just definitively worse than the original. They took the original, they took the sprites, they made them into very poor 3D models. All the same bugs and stuff and more existed because they basically did a direct port instead of actually making it from scratch again. It just sucked, to be frank. That's
very disappointing.
So I'm not hoping for any new remakes, at least for the games I like Gen 5, my personal favorite game, doing a living dex of that right now. Not a shiny living dex like Cream. You're just kind of a psychopath, but sorry about that. But it's fun, dude. I like the sprite games. It's better.
Well, I mean, I'm a huge Gen 6 stan, but I will definitely admit that RS is not the best way to experience Hoenn. I love RS. I think they
I think RS is good still. I will say BDSP's soulless cash grab awful. I would not recommend it to anyone. RS is at least solid. I just don't think it performs as a remake. It performs well as a game, but I think there's a lot to experience in the GBA games that you just can't experience in RS. Yeah, I mean, the biggest one, obviously, Battle Frontier. Everyone's going to mention that. But
I'll never forgive them for not adding the Battle Frontier.
I feel like RS is better if you see it as a different game than Ruby and Sapphire. I know it's hard to because it's in the name, but
it's supposed to be. Yeah. No, I mean, that's why I said that one's not particularly bad. BDSP is a crime against humanity, and that's why I don't want to do more remakes. But
that we all can agree on that.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely a very disappointing remake. But I'll talk about it more probably later, so I won't go into too depth. But I still feel that Heart Gold Soul Silver is the absolute pinnacle. We haven't gotten a Pokemon game that good since. We've gotten close, but we haven't got there. Definitely not recently.
I do think, in terms of remakes, Heart Gold Soul Silver might just be the best video game remake ever, period. Not even just Pokemon, just ever.
I would totally agree.
There's really not that many amazing... Most remakes are okay, we made the original game, we upped the resolution, the graphics a little bit, and then, we made it playable on your modern systems, but Heart Gold Soul Silver was we completely redid the game, but it's the same game, but it's just better in every way. And there's a shit ton of extra content. We had online and everything. It was just so much.
Yeah,
it was above and beyond. Yeah.
Last of Us remake remastered 7 times.
Yeah. But I do think that Black and White 2 probably would be, or Black and White 2 would be regarded as better if first off they were somehow tied together, and second off if they added follow-mons. I don't know why there's no follow-mons in Gen 5. It's my only problem with it. It's so annoying because they had the technology. They even have it in Gen 5, but it's locked to one Mindfu in a little house over in the Sea Village. It's
Isn't
why
the follow sprites for Gen 5 literally in the game? They have it in the code, they just don't have the follow mechanic?
I don't think so. Because no one has done it yet with a mod, and I think someone would have done that frame 1. People have done Blaze Black and stuff, which are crazy mods of every aspect of Gen 5, redoing a lot of stuff, adding bonus stories and cutscenes and shit, which is insane. But they haven't done follow mods.
Because PokeMMO has Gen 5 follower sprites.
PokeMMO was made from the ground up, I think. I don't think that was...
It's just use assets.
Yeah, the follower thing's a mod. It's not actually in the base PokeMMO.
Okay.
Animated Pokemon sprites was just... It's so nice every time I see them, and the moves work and stuff, the way they zoom the camera. I don't know. I feel Gen 5 is just the peak of everything for me.
I think visually, definitely Gen 5 peak.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, in terms of the visuals, there's another visual aspect in Pokemon that, honestly, these days doesn't get discussed that much, at least from my experience. What do you think the Pokemon designs have went downhill since, Gen 1?
Whatever.
Do you think they're getting better, worse, like staying the same?
I don't think bringing up Gen 1 is a good example.
Not Gen 1.
I think Gen 1 designs are sort of dated.
That's normally the things I hear. but do you think they're getting worse? Is my point, because people are like, especially I think for me the main time I started seeing YouTube videos about it was when Gen 6 when they added clef key.
Yeah,
that was like a trigger. Everyone was like, "Holy shit, the Pokemon sucks now. Every design's awful." And I don't know.
People were doing that with like Vanillux and stuff in Gen 5. That's when I started seeing it in Garbodor.
I didn't see it as much, but to be fair, I was also not as online at that time, so I might just missed it.
Yeah, fair.
For me, I have kind of like not two takes on the sides of the of this coin. In that, yes, I do kind of agree because, like I said, it goes back to what I said earlier about the old versus new question. I think Gen 7 has some great designs, but then every other 3D game seems to have maybe a couple good designs, and then 90% of everything else has been, I don't know, it's just been trash. But then you can't really hate on, or you can't say that people are just haters. You can literally go online now, and if you know where to look, there are certain forums that existed way back when that are still completely online that you can look on without going on any archive sites, where they're posts from like the year 2000 when Gold and Silver has just been announced, and people are like, Pokemon designs are so shit, and it's like, this has been going on. This has been going on since the concept of new, in air quotes, Pokemon. Basically, Gen 1ers, like, people pretend that Gen 1ers don't exist now, but basically, Gen 1ers are whatever the last gen was to been announced. There's always those people who are like, the last gen was better, or the last gen before the last gen was better, or, there's always going to be that, like, what is it? History repeating itself or whatever. There's a better phrase I can't think of, but it's basically history repeating itself. People will always hate on the design. If you're asking my objective, or rather subjective take on things, I'd say maybe there is like a drop in quality, but that's not to say there aren't any good designs, especially in regards rather to Gen 5 onwards.
So I actually completely disagree with that take. I mean, not the part that you said at the end. I agree that every gen has a Gen 1er thing going on. I think that was a good point. But I actually think modern designs are just as good as every other generation, and they haven't really went downhill. What I do think has happened is they've gotten more goofy and almost cartoonish, rather than, I don't know, it's an interesting thing to describe, because obviously Pokemon is cartoonish, that's the whole point. But I don't know if you kind of get what I mean with that, where it's like they're more silly than they were before.
The older ones feel a bit more like grounded in reality. I know what you mean.
Yeah. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's definitely different. I could see some people not liking it. I'm all for it, though. I think it fits the spirit of the game fine. I will say there's obviously a lot of lazy stuff like clef key or whatever, but that literally happens every generation.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's really that bad. There are some designs that are more questionable than others, but I do think there's been a lot of the one thing I will say, though, for me personally, this might just be a bad take or whatever, but I think the legendary designs have gotten infinitely worse with every generation. I think that's the one.
I agree.
That's one thing where I think the designs have gotten actually worse. I mean, especially these I do not care for these Gen 9 legendaries, like the bike Pokemon.
Well,
it's so weird.
Once you set the bar at Rayquaza, it's sort of.
Oh yeah.
How do you go higher than that?
I actually like Lugia and Ho-Oh more than Rayquaza, but that's my personal take.
Kind of.
That's valid.
Kind of still on. If I could, like, this might be a bit of a tangent, but if you're fine with that, it's on the topic of designs.
Sure.
Kind of going back to your point about the designs being goofier. If you actually look at the Gen 1 to 4 designs, this goes back to a point I was kind of making where people are like, oh, the gen before was better, blah, blah, blah. There's like a Gen 1 reset every gen. There was actually kind of a somewhat justified Gen 5 came around, because it was kind of, as many Pokemon fans know, a sort of a soft reboot, in a sense. The anime Ash almost started again. It's like his memory was erased, and all he remembered was Pikachu. Same with the games; they kind of cut everything out in Black One and White One. You could only get the Unova Pokemon, like it was Gen 1 again. And if you look at Gen 1 to Gen 4, the designs are somewhat consistent. They all, in air quotes, look like Pokemon should. But then you look at all of the Gen 5 Pokemon, and they have eyes that are completely different, one from Gen 1 to Gen 4, mostly. Maybe there's a couple here and there that match what Gen 5 looks like. But all the eyes are different. The designs are a little more angular and a little more edgy looking, almost. But some Pokemon, especially the legendaries, like you mentioned, bordering on being Yu-Gi-Oh-esque. And then back to that afterwards, and they kind of went the other way when they started going goofy, like you mentioned. So maybe there is some merit to what you're saying with the designs. I think, well, this would go into a longer tangent that I'd rather not go into because it would take up all our time, but there are like themes for every gen, so maybe it's based around the gens, and they want to have a little bit more leniency with what they do, and because they've gone to 3D, they've kind of got that room to be, I don't know, maybe sillier or go for different designs. Like in Gen 5, the graphics had gotten better at that point, so they went with more angular, more edgy designs, something more complex than what they could have achieved on the go. I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure why they've gone for the slightly weirder, what some would argue are worse designs, but there are definitely, the designs are definitely different, is my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel what you're saying.
Yeah, for me, if you take like Gen 9, for example, the latest games, there's some Pokemon in there that are really good designed. Like, for me, Skeledirge, the final evolution of the fire crocodile.
The fire crocodile dude is sick the whole way through.
Yeah, no, it's one of the best designs I've had in quite a while. I love him, and there's a lot of good Pokemon in Gen 9. However, some of the Pokemon in, like, the other Pokemon in Gen 9 are some of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. That engine Pokemon is awful.
I like the engine.
Yeah,
I like it. I actually like
like
the engine and the vacuum cleaner. They're pretty good.
It's so stupid. And the thing they did with Raikou, where he has the big long neck, is the silliest thing I've ever seen.
I don't know. I might be a Pokemon optimist at this point because all those Pokemon you've mentioned, I love.
I kind of like all of them. I agree with that.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's like I like goofy things, but like, holy fuck, it's so silly. Like I can't get behind.
To be fair, seeing the vacuum cleaner guy for the first time was jarring, but like after that, I don't know. I like the design. I think it fits.
I think, like, in general, in the later games, the quote-unquote bad designs are a lot worse than they used to be, but they can still be quality designs.
I don't really know if I think a lot of that is almost like nostalgia fueled. I think if they release some of I think if they release a lot of the Gen 1 or 2 Pokemon, like if they release Stantler for the first time today, I think not many people would care for him. Like, people are already done
for him now.
Yeah, right. And that's my point. That's a Gen 2 Pokemon, so like, you know, it's never always been good. It's a misconception. Even in Gen 1, there's some stinkers. People do point to Voltorb and say he's bad. I like Voltorb. I like
Voltorb. Me too. Yeah.
People are like, oh, it's so lazy. It's like a Pokeball Pokemon, but like that's sick. What do you mean? That's fucking dumb.
Especially in like the power plant where you find them, you know.
Yeah.
Because they're like
there's like Pokeballs on the ground, and you mistake Voltorb for items. That's really fucking clever,
awesome.
Man.
And you know, while we're here though, talking about these designs, though, what are your favorite designs? This was another question we were going to cover.
Of all Pokemon or just Gen 9?
Just all Pokemon. Why don't we start with Absalom? Because I have the feeling I know his answer.
I'll give you 3 guesses. But yeah, for me, Tropius. For one, he's kind of underappreciated, I feel, so I kind of latched onto him automatically. Sure. But I have this thing where a lot of people have brought this up to me, not just me, and it seems like a shared universal experience where you know, people being kids or whatever playing Ruby and stuff for the first time, and they come across Tropius, and his sprite is fucking massive. And everybody's like, holy shit, that's a powerful Pokemon.
This guy must be strong.
And he sucks, but...
I remember I actually used one in my my first ever playthrough, which I specifically remember because of that imposing thing. And because that was like my first or second ever run through of a Pokemon game, I didn't even know he was bad. So like, I assumed he was strong, and because I used him so much, he was a high level, so he was kind of strong. He kind of worked.
Oh yeah, he's usable in the main game, but try taking online. You're gonna have a bad
anywhere
time.
else, unless you're only that one harvest set in like P or whatever. But
I think design-wise, he's just super creative. Plant-based dinosaur. They've done that before, but he's got the bananas around the neck. He's like a docile sort of like a long neck, like a brachiosaurus sort of thing, rather than like an aggressive dinosaur. The leaf wings that's so good. I think he's just great. I don't know how to articulate it, but I just think everything about
you don't have to. You don't have to. This is just a choice, not an explanation.
Yeah, Tropius, my beloved.
Tropius is top 1 Pokemon I bring to a deserted island.
Oh yeah,
got the bananas. You can fly.
You just fly off the island.
Yeah.
It's out of there.
But yeah, for me, it's changed over the years as stuff got released. It started off with Sizzyl. He was my go-to for the longest time. He was also the first Pokemon I got to level 100. I found out without using the internet that you could trade with friends to get more experience, and I leveled my friends for Alligator, and he leveled my Sizzyl to 99, and then I got the final level myself. That was a really cool experience. And then after that, I don't remember fully a lot of that. I know it changed to something else in Gen 4 or 5, but nowadays I don't really remember what that Pokemon was. Because all I know is in Gen 7 they released Mimikyu, and that's just kind of become my go-to. That was even my profile pic for my YouTube channel for like 3 years, so,
Mimikyu's a good Pokemon.
Yeah.
Mimikyu's a great design.
Yeah.
Definitely the best Pika clone.
For sure. I mean, that's not even. I feel like almost every Pika clone sucks.
No, you're totally right.
Especially Togedemaru is like awful. I hate that thing.
Oh yeah, I guess that's kind of a Pika clone, huh?
Yeah, it was for that generation. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Yeah, Mimikyu's not even the Pika clone. Jeez, now I'm sad.
Anyway.
I guess for me, it's similar to Absalom. My favorite Pokemon's in my icon.
I didn't even notice.
I didn't even process that.
If that's like that's probably my single favorite design. Cream mentioned Rayquaza earlier. That's probably my favorite legendary design.
Nice.
Agreed.
General. I'm probably I lean more towards designs like Politoed's, less like Rayquaza. I'm more of a fan of those more natural designs. Maybe not the super lazy, like, oh, it's just a rat type of design, but the ones that do a little bit more, like maybe Carvana, where it's like you can tell it's still an animal, but it's a lot more fantastical. So like Carvana, so like simple designs. And then I like the occasional over-the-top design like Komao or Rayquaza or like Reshiram or something like that.
Yeah, I do want to say
I agree.
That did just jog my memory. I don't know why this is the case, but if I'm... because Heart Gold Soul Silver. Politoed was my favorite after Sizzyl. And then after that, it was Excadrill. That just jogged my memory. It was... That's how it was. It was Sizzyl, Politoed, then Excadrill, and then I still like those as like my top 3 for a while. But the thing is, when Sizzyl went to 3D, I forgot to mention this earlier. He completely fell off, in my opinion. I think they fucked up his design from 2D to 3D.
So bad.
I agree. Yeah. He also has a bad Mega Evolution, which is a shame.
Yeah. Let's get Cream's take.
My favorite Pokemon are usually the ones that don't have an evolution. They're just sort of like one-off. So I like Torkoal a lot. Torkoal's one of my favorite. In the latest generation, I like Cloth. I think Cloth looks really cute.
What is
sort
that?
Of like
the crab?
the rock crab. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I like that. I like a lot of the crab mons. They've never been my number one picks, but I've liked almost every crab Pokemon.
It's great. Like even Kingler's crazy.
Webbleroll, Kingler,
Corphish.
The exception being that ice one. That ice crab is
Crabrawler.
I hate that. I hate Crabrawler. He ruined
does
it.
really well,
The series up to that point had only good crabs, and he just completely ruined it from that point onward.
Anyway, yeah, Gen 7 has some really cool like one-off Pokemon. So like Drampa, Delmise is like one of my favorite Pokemon of all time.
Yeah.
But for like a normal playthrough, I don't know why, Lilligant, in the first time I played White, that's like a Pokemon that I was like, yeah, I need a grass type for my team. I'll try out this freaking, flower thing, and it sort of like carried my way through the whole game, basically.
That's
somehow.
insane, yeah.
Yeah, because it got like Quiver Dance for some reason. Like who?
Yeah,
gave it-
Lilligant does get Quiver Dance. I mean,
Like,
he
who
kind of
gave this
needed
thing
it, to
Quiver
be
Dance?
honest.
Yeah, it does.
I think it sucks without it.
So you just set up one of those and pedal dance your way through the Elite Four.
That's
It's like
fair. That's fair.
crazy. Yeah, so those are some of my favorite Pokemon. My favorite legendary, sorry, is Mewtwo. I have a Mewtwo tattoo, so
Oh, that's it.
Oh, sick.
Awesome.
he rocks.
Well, we kind of mentioned this, so I'm going to transition to this. What are your thoughts on generational gimmicks, like things they do for one generation and then remove them? Some examples I have, Pokeathlon, Hidden Grottos, Mega Evolution, Gigantamax, Z moves, like that whole kind of set of things.
Well, for me, my favorite generational gimmick is Mega Evolution, and it's not really even close. I dearly miss Mega Evolution.
I don't know why they removed that. I think they could have gone forward forever.
Exactly, and I completely agree. But at the same time, a lot of the other generational gimmicks, Z moves, Gigantamax, stuff like that, I wasn't super into, so I'm kind of glad they dropped it. But as a whole, as a concept, I'm not kind of into the kind of just one and done, kind of have a gimmick, then just drop it for the next game thing. I don't really like it. I kind of like continuity.
I did like when the series developed on itself. Like we went from like the Battle Frontier, Battle Factory stuff. Like they kind of developed on each other to make their way up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mega Evolution from Gen 6 to 7 was cool. Gigantamax was absolutely awful. But I will say, Tera-Types are sick. That's probably my favorite addition in so long. It's so cool. It does like in the story. I think it should be almost like Mega Evolutions were handled in Gen 7, where in the story you don't really get access to them. But for PvP, Tera-Types are sick.
Oh, it's such a cool. Yeah.
I'm also glad. I know I said I like Sun and Moon, but I'm glad that Totem Pokemon were a one-off. It was good for that game, but I just don't think it would work anywhere else. I guess they kind of brought it back in Gen 9 in a way. I don't know. I view that a little bit differently.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Mega Evolution is kind of weird, right? Because once you give a Pokemon a Mega Evolution, and this isn't like written in stone anywhere or anything, but Heracross probably isn't going to get an evolution. Like a normal one.
Yeah,
and
because he had a Mega.
Pinsir's done, right? Yeah.
This
isn't, again, not written in stone anywhere.
Yeah. I was thinking change
the way I feel. Yeah.
I agree with that. I think Mega Evolutions are almost like a fourth stage of evolution. If that makes sense. But also for Pokemon that don't have 3 stages before that. It's just like an added design. It also lets Pokemon that are kind of bad get value, which I really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I love that.
Mega King is gone.
Yeah, that's speaking of like different forms and stuff. What are your thoughts on version exclusives? I don't know if that really. Yeah, I think that kind of works. It's a bad transition, but whatever.
Fuck it.
We ball.
Yeah, we ball.
We ball.
I feel like version exclusives are kind of a dated concept at this point. I totally understand why they were a thing in the older games. Obviously, they wanted to encourage trading, and it was kind of a novel concept to be able to, link your consoles up and trade with people back in the 90s. But nowadays, I mean, it's just kind of, it feels like it's just there to be there. Like, trading with people in Scarlet and Violet is no longer an issue. Like, the internet is a thing. You just jump on and trade with someone. But you still need to get the version exclusives, and it's just such an extra little hoop to jump through when you're completing the decks. I just feel like it's kind of lost the original point of it, and it's kind of just a data concept. We don't really need it anymore. That's how I feel.
I kind of saw its value in the early, I'd say I think Gen 1 and Gen 2, sure, they were fine. But I think even as early as Gen 3, what they should have done is instead of having version exclusive, have trade exclusive Pokemon, like the ones that evolve via trade. And that would have been, that still would have been, they have both Gen 3 going forward. But I think that would have been, they even had that in Gen 1 with like, Alakazam, I'm pretty sure. There's no other way to get that.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think that would be peak, and I will tell you, I've played, some Pokemon mods and stuff where they kind of design the games like that. You can catch everything in one game, and it's so much better. The unfortunate part is it's extra money for Nintendo. It's like 2 seconds of effort, and I know a lot of people that buy both versions, and it's like, holy fuck, dude. They literally they double their money for free. They're never really going to get rid of it until that stops. Which is unfortunate. I don't think they should exist. They're really annoying. Like you said, it's not really too hard to do, but it's just annoying to have to go out of the way. I've been mainly experiencing this in the Gen 5 live decks. It's just like a list of 60 to 70 Pokemon you can't even get in Gen 5. And then some of those are trade version exclusives as well. It's just really, really annoying.
Yeah, I'm trying to finish the Heart Gold Soul Silver national decks.
Oh god, that's so bad.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I have most of the games I need, all except one, and that's Pearl, because I need a Glam, and it's only available in Pearl. It is an exceedingly rare Pokemon. Say again, sorry.
Is it? Yeah, you can't get Glameow in Platinum. So. Yeah,
it's only in Pearl. And even after Gen 4, it's only in. I think it might actually have been in.
I want to correct you here. This is a little known mechanic is Glameow and what's the other Pokemon? They used it in like the Valley Windworks, the boss Pokemon. The cat. No, the cat. The boss lady's cat. Yeah, Perugly. Those two.
Yeah.
In Black and White 2. I found this out while going through my live decks, and it was like slightly inaccurate. They're both available not only in Hidden Grottos, but in a Fun Fest mission, which is something a lot of people also don't know about. No, not Dreamworld. Those are separate things.
Oh.
There's a thing called Fun Fest missions in Gen 5 where if you go on the bottom of your screen, they're basically like almost mini games, and you can play them while you're playing the main game. There's stuff like collecting berries, catching certain Pokemon, whatever, and they all give you item rewards. It's actually really cool. But for those two Pokemon, they're version exclusive Fun Fest missions, which is interesting.
Right.
But it's actually kind of cool because the way that works is if your friend has the opposite version, you can do Fun Fest missions with up to, I think, like 300 people, but it's only locally, like system to system, DS to DS. But I did that with my friend recently. I need to get, like, I think Stunky or something. And maybe I'm thinking of the wrong Pokemon, but it's just cool either way. But basically, we did that mission together and linked up. And I was able to get something that was only available in the other version without connecting to the other version, which I thought was kind of cool because I got it on my system and my cartridge without trading. Like it was my catch, but only because I was linked up.
Yeah, I feel that. But I think going back to what XYZ was saying, they like tactically engineer the games to where, like, for example, I'm doing the Emerald decks, right? And if you have let's say you have Emerald and Ruby, you have those two cartridges, you can get every single Hoenn Pokemon for the Hoenn decks, except for Lunatone. You need Sapphire for Lunatone and Lunatone only. And for Ruby, if you have Ruby, I think it's Mawile, you can't get if you just have Emerald and Sapphire. You need all three. So annoying. And so if you had Emerald, it's the master kind of version of Gen 3, and one of the others, you can do all the trade evolutions, you can get everything, but they tactically leave out just one Pokemon, and it's so frustrating.
It's very bad for Gen 5, I think, above anything else, because they in Gen 6 and above, they reintroduced a lot of stuff catchable. But for Gen 5 specifically, if you want the full living decks, you need to do Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Platinum, Black and White 2, also Black and White 1, like one of the two, or even both. I think you actually need both the original games and 2, and also Heart Gold, Soul Silver, And depending on if you want to beat the entirety of Heart Gold, Soul Silver 3 entire times to get each of the starters, you also need a Gen 3 game.
Oh, hey, someone watched my video.
I did this. I did watch your videos, but I also did my own research beforehand.
Nice.
And that's where I got this from. I made my own video, but it was way less well produced.
No, dude, my videos, I suck at editing.
They're better, dude. They're better than mine. I don't know if you've ever looked at the slop I produce on my second channel, but that's where it's at.
I've been meaning to ask. I don't know what Living Dex is.
Living Dex is catching every Pokemon and having that Pokemon, like every single stage, you have one version of it in your PC, so you could use it. So, like, for example, you'd have Pikachu, Pichu, and Raichu. It's not just having seen them, it's not just having evolved them, you'd have one of every single Pokemon.
Oh, right, yeah.
Probably a good thing to clarify, just for the random viewers or listeners at home.
We're throwing that term around a lot, so...
Yeah.
I thought that was just like something people do, like just as a little bit extra after completing the national decks. I didn't know that was like a challenge in of itself.
It is so much more than, like, the national decks might be a pain in the ass and might have one or two version exclusives, but generally they're not actually bad. Most national decks you can kind of complete actually in game by battling specific trainers and whatnot and doing specific side quests. But for the living decks, you need like 80 games that are all connected to trade up through, or just other people to trade with who already did that for you, if that makes sense.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Very true. For our viewers at home, if you think you're patient, how about you try doing a shiny living dex?
Do not do Cream's doing the shiny living decks, just watch him do it. You'll get way more enjoyment. I assure you.
I'm at like 42 shinies.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, you're doing it in a
Everybody
full odds game. I'm doing it in Gen 6, which is half odds, and I'm still having a nightmare time.
No,
so
most of my catches are in Violet still.
Oh, you did Violet?
With sandwiches. So, well, I'm trying to catch all of them, right? So I always think
he's going the whole way through all the games, just insane.
Okay, gotcha.
Speaking of those Gen 9 games, though, what do you guys think about DLC in Pokemon?
Don't really like it, hey.
Yeah.
I get why it's a thing. I get it. We're in the, the modern era.
Yeah.
But it just feels like such a cop-out, especially for, having a bunch of Pokemon missing from the base game, but you can catch them in a DLC. I really don't like it.
I also felt like, this is more for Gen 8 than Gen 9, I felt like the game almost needed a DLC, where it was like half the game and the DLC was the other half.
100%.
Which was kind of sucky, and it just, also the prices are ridiculous for it. Like, you paid for the whole game already, the DLC being like another $30 is insane. I don't know who thought that was okay.
But it's just the age we live in. I get why they do it. It's just, I'm not happy about it. I don't think it excuses it.
Yeah, same here. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of C as a concept, period, in any game.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree.
I'm really going to sound like an old man. Like, okay, the DLC takes an old man thing, but I'm going to sound like an extra old man saying this, like the oldest man living. I'm not even a fan of updates, and part of me wishes we were back to the PS2, GameCube, like even PS1, where there was no such thing as updates, because it's made developers so much lazier. And I know I'm saying this for people who work around the clock, days on end with no sleep to make the games that we enjoy. But in a sense, stuff like DLC and updates to a lesser, well, maybe you could argue whether it's lesser or more, but both have kind of made especially with Pokemon, because Scarlet and Violet will come out with the glitches, then they'll patch it like either day one
only 50.
Or only 50. That's me being generous. But like then they'll patch it and it'll be like half that, and that might be it. That's if they actually bother to patch it or at all. And then they have the goal to be like, hey, we'll see where you can catch some of your old favorites. And obviously there's the big fanboys just like eat it all up. And then there's the people who are begrudgingly like, maybe like you guys who are like, oh well, I'm doing the Living Dex challenge, might as well. It's kind of like
that's
almost
why
like
that's why I'm doing the living decks and that's why I'm doing a Gen 5 living decks, is then I don't have to deal with DLC or any of those shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
It's much nicer that way.
To me, you're paying for like a half-finished game to begin with, even whether we're talking about
Yeah,
updates or
I agree.
DLC, and it's just
I don't know about
promote lateness,
updates as
sorry.
much because it's free, and when it's free, I think it's okay. Especially a lot of my favorite games are stuff like Team Fortress 2, and if that
Yeah,
game
yeah.
never got updated, I mean, it would have been solid, but it would not be one of my favorite games, right? It's I think it's nice to have updates and like free DLC, but when it's paid, it's a lot more iffy for me. I understand it's like needed to cover development costs, but I think there's better ways to do that.
Yeah.
Especially in this cosmetic heavy era. They could definitely sell stuff for your like Pokemon model in game. You could have like I remember actually back in Gen 8 before it came out, I pre-ordered that specifically to get a golden bag or whatever, and then that game ended up sucking, and I regretted that. But
I didn't know they did that. That's funny.
Yeah, it was only in like the US if you bought like a double pack off Amazon or something. It was like, well, not the US only. There was different ways of getting it per region, but for me, it was I had to buy both games off Amazon at a $10 reduced price because it was both. And since my friend wanted to get that game, we were like, okay, we'll both do this, but it only came with one code, and he ended up using it before we realized we couldn't use it multiple times.
Oh my
whatever.
god.
Which whatever. Honestly, that game sucked so much. I don't really mind that happened. I think he played it way more than I ended up
in any
doing it.
Pokemon game, you want it to be Sword and Shield. Fuck
He
those
doesn't.
games,
He
man.
didn't mind how bad it was, and definitely played a lot more than me. So I don't really regret that happened. In the moment, it felt awful, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Things
for
happen.
real.
But yeah, speaking of those Gen 9 games, what are your thoughts on Pokemon being excluded in the last games and also just possibly going forward?
I have a weird take on this.
Yep, I want to hear it.
Go ahead.
So it's not like I have no problem with Pokemon being excluded. I think 1,000 Pokemon is so much, dude. That's so much Pokemon, right? Like imagine you're trying to get the shiny charm in a game and you need to catch all 1,017 or whatever Pokemon. Plus like whatever they add to the next game, right? Like that is so much work. You want 100% a Pokemon game now, and it's like, okay, I just need to catch 400 Pokemon. That's like easy and doable. So I don't know. I feel like for people's completionists' sake, I feel like it's unnecessary thing.
But but they already had a solution for this. In the Hoenn and like Sinnoh and stuff, the Pokédex isn't the full national dex. It's just catching whatever you need for
the I think
regional.
a mix of that in Gen 5 would be peak. Like, the not Gen 5 version 2, I think Black and White 1 had the most interesting idea, and I really think they should use it going forward, even though the games did kind of flop on release. Where throughout the whole main game, it's only that generation's Pokemon.
Yeah.
So that's what you focus on, and when someone has all of those Pokemon, then you give them the shiny charm, and then you let them get the rest. But I think, especially with how much they're reusing models and everything, there's not really an excuse for just adding them as like a 1% encounter in some patch of grass. You could even have a single patch of grass with 100 Pokemon, all 1%, and I'd be happy with that. I think just removing it is
I'd like that, yeah.
that'd be sick. Yeah, like almost like a slot machine. just like pull down the fucking lever and see what you get.
Nuzlocke would go hard in that game.
That would go crazy.
Oh my God, that'd
be awesome. But yeah, I think there's, especially with how lazy they've been with development and reusing assets and stuff, you could easily have everything. There's like no real excuse for excluding everything. They didn't go like, look, if they had why am I forgetting this again? The Wii game with the sick animations. If they had those animations, if they had Battle Revolution animations for every Pokemon in the game, I'd be all for it. I'd be like, you know, I'll sacrifice a few Pokemon for good animations, even if there's some that I like in that sacrifice. However, they didn't do that. They reused the same animations. They actually, I think, even downgraded some of them and whatever. They're reusing everything. You can just have those Pokemon. They don't even have to be overworld. They could literally just be grass patches or whatever. Or I guess now that it is overworld, it's very easy to just set a Pokemon to spawn, especially when you have the model. It's definitely going to add a lot of bloat, but I think it's something that Pokemon as a series kind of signed themselves up for. I think that's just a necessary evil.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I agree with Cream and Sizzyl. Like, to be honest, they probably should. They probably won't going forward, and they probably shouldn't going forward. Include every Pokemon. But like Sizzyl, with the way they've been handling things, is there any excuse like what are we getting in place of that? Like gimmicks that, to be honest, I don't really care for. Like a new gimmick. Wow, every gen. It's this point. It's like after Mega Evolutions, like you guys said, we peaked with Mega Evolutions. Everything since then has just been a big waste of time and a big development time and resources and money. And we might as well just have more, basically no gimmicks. Replace whatever gimmick you were going to include with 100 extra Pokemon, and I'm sure people will be happy. Even in the entire national decks, it's probably a tall order, and like you said, it's probably going to do a lot of blow, and it's probably not possible. But if you could have it, it would be nice. But at the same time, if they actually up their game, then it's like, yeah, maybe 500 Pokemon at the most, maybe even 300 Pokemon at the most. I'd be all right with, as long as the game's absolutely top tier, makes Heart Gold, Soul Silver look like Superman 64 or something like that.
Yeah. I agree with that for sure.
I think the problems just arise when, like, I don't have no problem with like Pokemon being unobtainable in a game, but like say in Gen 8, if you couldn't catch Tropius at all, you had to like trade him or whatever, that'd be fine. But Tropius doesn't exist anywhere in the code, like you can't have one. And I really don't like that, not just because he's my favorite Pokemon, but like for any sort of Pokemon that is not obtainable, like not even tradable, it feels like they're just like erasing that Pokemon from existence. It's so I really don't like that the whole cutting the decks means this Pokemon is obliterated. So
that's why like Gen 5 original got so much flack on release, because it almost did that, but they were all in the game and you could trade them up. But at the time, because you could only really trade them up into those games and they didn't really exist in the games themselves, people hated that, and for good reason. I mean, you want to use your Pokemon, but I think if they understood that those Pokemon would be available, but the main game was all about the new Pokemon, it's sick. I mean, I don't think I would have ever used or found an Excadrill if he wasn't one of the only options at that moment. I think that's how they should do Pokemon. All the new version Pokemon should be all you can get, so that every game has its own set of identifiable Pokemon. That's like a big problem, especially with Gen 2 and 3. A lot of people have, where a lot of people think a lot of Gen 2 Pokemon were introduced in Gen 3.
That's true,
and for good reason, because they had like a patch like 3 miles outside the map that had a 1% chance of encountering them or something. Like, examples are like Misdrevious. People think that's a Gen 3 or even Gen 4 Pokemon. That is a Gen 2 Pokemon right there.
Yeah.
Slugma, I thought that was Gen 3 until about 3 weeks ago when I saw the video explaining what I'm talking about. And like
Skarmory's another one.
Yeah, I used to think Skarmory was Gen 3.
Like, I had no clue, and it's because they didn't have, they weren't exclusive to that generation, and there was all these other Pokemon you could catch instead that I just did. I had no reason to go out of my way to get them.
One more thing to add to the like dex cutting thing is, and it's a small thing. It's like 0.05% chance amount of people play like competitive Pokemon. But if you have all the Pokemon in all the games at all times, the will to compete in competitive is just going to go down, because then you'll just see the same 6 teams across like all of Pokemon games, right? Like you don't have that like, oh well, Landorus T isn't in this game, so I can't use him. Heatran's not in this game yet, so I can't use him. We have to like be creative, and that's why the first little bit of the competitive in Gen 9 was so cool, because there was like people were using like Murkrow, for example.
It was a new thing.
Yeah, but then again, like 5% people that play Pokemon play it competitively, so it's not
it's also, even with the competitive scene, every time a new game releases, I'm pretty sure they have it restricted to that region's decks anyway.
Yeah, for a little bit.
So I think that's honestly good enough most of the time, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Because I think Murkrow will always find like a niche somewhere in something, and as they add more Pokemon, competitive Pokemon will add more tiers. Speaking of which, while we're on the topic, competitive Pokemon, oftentimes a lot of players will use a website called Pokemon Showdown, where you can simulate battles and stuff. What do you think about that? Do you think they should maybe try to include something like that in the games, or like you think it's good being its own separate thing?
Please God, add it to the games.
Like that, I
Yeah.
do think that'd be
Oh my
sick.
God.
Please just add a team builder to the game where you don't
Yeah.
have to grind for
Grind it
like
out.
6 hours to get EVs or whatever.
I
Just
think
let
they should
people
make
battle.
that like illegal. I think that should be something you unlock in the post game. I do think there should be a way to play where they aren't genned in, because I think that has its own kind of benefits. But I think at least, if nothing else, for the competitive Pokemon players, flying around the world to compete in tournaments, I think they should have access to a team builder that they're just allowed to use.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
friend had to. Sorry, my friend had to reset for Blood Moon Ursaluna like
Mhm.
1,000 times to get the right IV spread that he wanted. Like
Yeah,
that shouldn't be a thing.
that's insane.
It's rough.
That is an interesting point. I've never actually thought of actually including a showdown type of thing in games, because I mean competitive players have basically made do since Gen 1 probably. It's basically since the
Yeah,
concept is
Pokemon Showdown's been around for a long time. I don't actually know when that got added, but yeah, it's been like just accepted.
Yeah, like within the games themselves, people have made do. Having a showdown type simulator within the game would probably, or like a team builder would actually be great. And like personally, I do use Showdown. The only time I actually in game actually like bred and traded and trained up competitive teams, and it was to a loose degree as well. I didn't really worry too much about natures and IVs and stuff like that. Just giving them good movesets and good EV spreads. It was in Gen 6, it was in X and Y actually, which is why I have the playtime that I have in those games despite not really liking them. Outside, I can't be bothered doing this for every other game, so I'm just going to go on to Showdown and play, just build up.
Play a few battles there, have a fun on that website instead of in game.
Yeah, I
For
can
sure.
literally just go on Team Builder and create a Gen 7 Little Cup team and not have to grind for hours in the game.
I mean, for me, I like. I'm not as I like competing and stuff, but I don't really like being competitive. If that makes sense. Like it's fun to fight people, but it's not fun to like
Yeah, I'm totally the
spend
same.
hours a day generating teams. So I actually like random battles. Which you can do easily on Showdown. It's literally you click the play button, it makes a team for you, makes a team for your opponent, and you just fight, and that's really fun. That stemmed actually from Heart Gold Soul Silver. They had a thing called the Battle Factory, which was literally the same thing in game, except I don't think you could do the Battle Factory against other humans. If you could, I would be fucking ecstatic, dude. That would be so much fun, just in game. I don't want to have to go to Showdown if I don't have to. But yeah, looking it up, Pokemon Showdown came out in 2012, so it was like right before Gen 6 or like halfway through Gen 5 or something.
Well, it's older than that, honestly, but
I did too. I thought it'd be like 2009 or something, but
yeah, I thought it was Gen 4, but yeah.
Here we are. Yeah, 2012. That's according to Google.
Thanks, Google.
But yeah. With that out of the way, I want to go way back. We talked about this like 5-10 minutes ago, but we're talking about like the shiny charm. What are your thoughts on what a lot of people really enjoy in Pokemon, but isn't really a main mechanic? Is shiny Pokemon. What do you think about them? Like,
I mean,
acquiring them, just their existence, etc.
I think they're cool.
Did you just have to say that they're cool?
Yeah, they're cool. All right, bye guys.
Fair enough. He's not wrong. You gonna tell him he's wrong?
You spin.
I think it's like the best gimmick they've ever introduced, and it's one they've kept for the entire thing. I think they introduced it in Gen 2, and it was just like a stroke of like a genius. Having a super rare chance of getting a different colored Pokemon, and it kind of and for like a certain amount of like shiny Pokemon, it can really like change how you view the designs. It just brings so much creativity, and it's so fun looking for them, and then finally getting that that dopamine rush when you finally get your shiny Pokemon. And for me, for the past few years, that's the main reason why I've been playing Pokemon is for shiny hunting. It's been super cool, and like particularly what people have done online, like with their shiny challenges and building communities out of shiny hunting. It's just so neat that like it completely like optional little challenge for Pokemon has become like such a big thing, like that people.
Yeah, I mean, there's
do.
a whole
I love
shiny
it.
hunting community for sure. And I mean, obviously the
Cool.
shiny decks that Cream's doing right now, right? That doesn't exist without shinies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I will say, for me personally, the one thing I want to say about shiny Pokemon, obviously they're cool and all, but I don't like when the odds are decreased too far without
Yeah.
effort on the user's end.
I agree.
So like
Yeah.
Pokemon Go, for example,
Dude.
on Community Day, I think it's like 1 in 20 are shiny, at least from my experience.
So I think it's 1 in 100 on Pokemon on community days.
Maybe it's hard to tell, but it feels like every 3 minutes I'm getting another shiny,
It's
which
so
isn't
ridiculous.
exactly like it doesn't feel good at all. It ruins the rarity. I think part of the coolness of shinies is that they're rare, you know? That it's not something you can just get. But when you have the odds super lowered, especially I'd say in Gen 8 and 9, where overworld encounters can happen so fast, and you can have such reduced odds, especially this noticeable in like the Arceus game or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like when they're too easy to get, they lose almost all their value for me personally. I do really like when there's methods though, right? So
Yeah,
like
I
the
agree.
Masuda method, chin fishing, the like
Poke radar,
shiny
stuff like that.
patches thing they did in Gen 4.
Chain
Yeah.
fishing Pokemon are almost free too, though.
That's true, but it
It's
was
so easy.
it was limited to a small number of Pokemon.
Yeah,
It was
that's
like
true,
a very
that's true.
specific gimmick. I thought it was kind of cool. I still do. But just stuff like that, Masuda method, chain fishing, Poke radar. I think there's some other stuff, but I'm just not remembering.
Oh, there's a lot. Yeah.
But then there's stuff like horde battles, which I don't like. I think that's just insane. SOS chaining was really fun. I thought that was a cool one.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But stuff like that I
fun.
like, but when they're too easy to get, like they just exist, or the method is like super easy and covers everything in the game, or just the base odds are super low, I don't like that as much.
Yeah, I agree.
I can get behind that. Yeah.
The just being able to feel like Scarlet and Violet, you kind of just throw on a shiny sandwich and just go run around. You find one basically instantly. It's so crazy to find shinies in that game. It's really easy.
Which I don't like personally, but yeah.
Yeah, I
didn't
don't
know
either.
it was that easy these days. I really didn't know it was that easy. I just thought it was like because they did decrease it, or increase, I guess, the odds in Gen 6.
From generation. I thought that was a okay change though. From 1 in 8,000 to 1 in 4,000 was actually kind of reasonable.
It's definitely still not easy to find one randomly.
Yeah,
like it's 1 in 4,000. Like that's a big number.
Yeah, it definitely is. So I was wondering why, like, because it almost felt like as soon as Scarlet and Violet came out, people hadn't even loaded the game up yet, and they've already like, I've got 10 shinies. I'm like, have you even put the game in your Switch yet?
The thing with Scarlet and Violet is when you run around, you can spawn like 10 Pokemon every second. I think the odds are still even 1 in 4,000. And then also shiny sandwiches are kind of like the shiny charm, so it does like the same thing in every other gen, where I don't know, like halves the rate or something. I forgot what the shiny charm does in Gen 6. But it lowers the rate, point being. But the problem is mainly with overworld encounters. I mean, you encounter more faster. And that's why shinies are more common. It's not necessarily just the odds, I don't think. I don't actually know.
You're seeing so many in like
that's just bound to happen, yeah.
Such a short amount of time, yeah. It's just like in the old games, you have to go into the grass and get an encounter, but the new ones, you just run around and you find like 20 Pokemon in 5 seconds, and
I think when the base odds are around 1 in 4,000, but like different methods can get you as low. Let's say it's like 1 in 2,000, 1 in 500 or something, depending on how hard the method is to execute. I think that's sick. And I think that keeps them rare, and it also makes them feel even more special when you catch it. Like if you catch something with the Poke radar, like that's going to be memorable.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
like Masuda with shiny charm is like 1 in 500 and something, which sounds good, but then like go hatch 500 eggs and tell me how long it takes.
Fun with that.
Right, so it's like the balance in it is nice.
For sure.
For all intents and purposes, especially for the challenge of doing like the easier shiny, the better. Honestly, so I've been abusing Sword of Scarlet and Violet to get all the Gen 9 Pokemon. You know, just like every 30 minutes, just shiny sandwich or sparkling sandwich and Masso breaks to even like lower that chance. I don't know, it's been good so far, but there's some times where it feels like we go like 2 or 2.5 hours without catching a shiny, which like is an inconsequential amount of time in the like grand scheme of things. Especially for like some shiny hunts that we're doing.
I feel like if you're going for a shiny live dex though, it's kind of on you.
Yeah.
Right? it's like if I tell myself like, okay, I'm gonna keep buying and scratching lottery tickets till I win the lottery. It's like, well, you did that to yourself. It's gonna take you a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, I did the math, and it's like I will finish by like 2026.
No, I mean I think that's about where I'll end my live decks, just normal, because I'm taking it so slow.
Yeah, if I keep going at this pace.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all there really is that we're going to talk about in terms of the main games, and I want to go off to the other parts of the Pokemon series, like the spin-offs. Like, what's your favorite spin-off game?
Mystery Dungeon. It's not close. Particularly the original ones, Blue Red Rescue Team. I don't think side games have been better since, and I don't think they will be, honestly. Those games are so much like charm and polish, and the Mystery Dungeon format just works so well for Pokemon as a series. It's just like a perfect fit, and those games have so much replayability and so much to do, and they're just super fun to get lost in and, you know, spend all your day playing. Just a great time. So good.
Totally agree.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like I said at the start, like my first proper Pokemon game, maybe I played I played another game like here and there else, but from what I can remember, my first game was Blue Rescue Team, and it's like one of the first games that made me like feel some like real emotion. I actually teared up at like the ending bit that they've basically rehashed for every Mystery Dungeon game, I think, where you like leave your partner and stuff. Spoiler alert, sorry for the
dude, it's like a 20-year-old game.
Yeah.
No, it's like an emotionally attaching game. It's got a nice story to it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and although I will say maybe these days, because I'll be honest, even though I have that massive soft spot for Blue Rescue Team specifically, maybe Explorers of Sky is a better version, especially with those extra like special missions that you can unlock, like what they add to the game, and like they up the stakes and up the emotion and up like basically everything in Explorers of Sky. And so it's a toss up between those two, and I'd say, you know, I keep going back to objective versus subjective thing. I'd say maybe the objective answer for the best, if we were going for the best, is Explorers of Sky, but Blue Rescue Team will always be in my heart. It's just one of those top tier games to me.
I think for my money, the best spin-off Pokemon games are XD, Coliseum, and another hot take, Pokemon Channel for the GameCube. All those for the GameCube, actually.
I never got to play or really look into Pokemon Channel. What do you do in that game?
It's pretty dumb. Have you heard of Hey You Pikachu for the 64?
I've seen some footage of it, and it was
so
funny.
That was without the mic.
Yeah, the mic is what made it funny.
Yeah. But anyway, you get this like Pikachu. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that like I thought all you do in that game is like watch the like Pikachu shorts that like come up before like every anime movie. Like you watch like Pikachu Bros or Pichu Bros. It's like those like little sketches. Like that's all you do.
That's part
like
of
you watch
it.
a web.
The TV is the main point. The big thing in that game. But there's like places you can go. You can go fishing and travel to different places with Pikachu. Go to the beach and stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's a bad game and a mediocre sim.
I mean, look, everything's got their own charm. I was gonna run through. I got like a whole kind of thing I was gonna explain. So for me, I think the quick answer for those who want it is also Pokemon Red Blue, like Team, whatever it's called, Mystery Dungeon, like the one Absol and the next
Red Rescue Team,
yeah, but Red Blue Rescue Team. I played both versions actually because I had both at the exact same time. But like that's probably the best one, just subjectively.
Yeah.
But I do think I haven't played Coliseum and XD yet. Those games could take the spot for me because I played a lot of Pokemon Battle Revolution, and I think if Pokemon Battle Revolution had the ability to get more than like 10 Pokemon,
that would have
probably been my favorite spin-off. And I think that's what XD and Coliseum kind of do for their respective generations. And that sounds sick to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool. I like just the battles and the animations and shit. They go together really well.
Yeah.
I think with a proper story and catching everything would be sick.
I haven't played the GameCube ones yet, but I'm gonna need to soon to complete my Emerald decks.
Yeah.
So
Okay, baby.
I'm looking forward to it.
And then also, this is a very, very weird take, but I also like Pokemon Rumble a good amount. The original only, not
Yes.
any of the further games.
Yeah, Rumble's a good time.
just watching, I don't know, Rumble shiny hunts are so sick.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't
it's
know
so
you could
chill.
shiny hunt in that game.
Only in the original. After that, they for some reason removed shinies, which I don't understand why you would ever do that.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but the original has a lot to shiny hunt, so you got a long thing ahead of you, and then different shinies and stuff will have different characteristics. Like some of them will move faster, some of them will do more damage or have certain
Oh,
resistances.
that's cool. I didn't know they had abilities.
It's really cool. Yeah, no, it's not abilities, but it'll add like a little name tag in front of them. So it'll be like Speedy Firo or something, and then it'll run faster by a good amount. That's, by the way, Speedy's the one that I know because that's the one you want to use to shiny hunt. Because running faster means you get their stuff faster.
Man, I'm gonna have to look into that. That sounds really cool.
But yeah, no, there's like an event. I watched a guy called Absalom Blogs Pokemon or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Not Absalom, sorry. I always get these mixed up whenever I'm talking to Absalom, but it's Absol Blogs Pokemon. And he does a thing called like Rumble Week or something.
Rumble Weekend.
Rumble Weekend, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
That shit's sick. I love Rumble Weekend. They literally just shiny hunt Pokemon Rumble as like a community, and then you post like what you got to Twitter, and everyone like is all excited about it.
You do not know confusion until you have me and Absol Blogs Pokemon in the same Twitch chat trying to talk to the same streamer. It is so bad. I've had that happen before.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. Your names have a lot of overlap.
Yeah, a lot of people think that Absol is my favorite Pokemon because of my name, but it's completely unrelated.
I know. I remember that. I don't remember what video this was, but there was some video where I mentioned it. I think it was like a review or something, and I literally said that in the video. I was like, "Yeah, my favorite Twitch streamer Absalom, and his favorite Pokemon Absol."
Yeah, no, I remember that too. You said my favorite Pokemon is Absol. And I'm like, what the
It's
fuck
like
are you
your
talking
profile
about?
pic and everything were just a fucking Tropius, and I knew that. It just didn't cross my mind.
It's
Yeah.
all good. I like Absol. I think he's a good Pokemon.
Absol's pretty cool, but yeah, he's not Tropius. I agree.
Not close.
And then the last kind of, there's two more aspects I want to talk about in terms of other games. What do you think about the trading card game, like the Pokemon trading card game?
I like watching the occasional pack openings. The guy want to like start doing YouTube. It's like if you watch his videos, they're completely different to mine. They're like completely unrelated. But he was actually a guy who was very big back in like 2009, 2010 in like the trading card like collecting community.
Wow.
He's called Slayer of MCA. He's from like New Zealand, I think, Christchurch, New Zealand. He basically had a series called Pokefacts, where he basically just random facts about Pokemon and occasionally talk about other random stuff like the Ashcoma variants. And if you go on his channel, those are the most popular ones. But while I was waiting for Pokefacts episodes, I watched his like pack openings, and they were just really chill and really fun. So I got into watching those through him. But beyond that, I've never really been into the trading card game. I find like the desktop like the official like TCG game that you can download off the Pokemon website. But
off the cards or whatever.
Yeah. And I messed around with that a bit, but I've never actually tried playing it. And I have tried collecting at certain points, but it's just a sink. So yeah, I'm not too into it, but I do love watching the pack opening videos for sure, especially seeing like a lot of the old school reactions, like, oh my god, I got a gold star Mew, and it's like, it's just, it's really cool. It's like watching shiny hunts, I guess.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of experience with the game itself. I played like XYZ said, I played a little bit of the desktop one. It's kind of fun, but I'm not really a trading card kind of person. When I was a kid, trading the TCG was all the rage. Everybody collected the cards. You know, nobody played the game, but everybody wanted the pretty pictures with the pretty shiny holo cards. And I did definitely fall back into it as an adult. I started collecting the cards again. There's a lot of the newer sets have such good art and, you know, really cool Pokemon cards in general. I'm kind of falling out of it because, one, it's way too expensive, and two, it's kind of oversaturated as like the hobby. A lot of people are collecting and driving up the prices and like
it's not as
scalping
niche
cards and
anymore.
stuff. Yeah, it's
For
kind of
sure.
taken the fun out of it for me. So I've kind of fallen out of it, but I do like it as a whole. I think a lot of the art and stuff they're doing is really creative, and yeah, it's just a fun little side thing you can get to, you know, bolster your Pokemon collection. I do like it.
Yeah, I used to. I collected cards for a bit. I always liked collecting them. I mean, like you said, it was all the rage for kids for a while. And I still have all those. I didn't really sell them off or anything. They're sitting in like a little laminated book or whatever somewhere in like a storage box of all my childhood stuff. But I never even want to try the game. I remember at some point as a kid, I was like kind of interested. I was like, well, I like the video games. I like collecting the cards. Like, let me try the card game. But it's just too complex. There's too much. What I like about like normal Pokemon battles is like they're like simple to get started with and really hard and have like a big skill ceiling for how good you can get at like maneuvering with the basic things you have, right? Your 4 attacks, your abilities, your items, right? But the trading card game, there was like a million rules for every single attack or like swapping Pokemon or whatever. It was all too complex for me. It went way over my head, and it still does. I don't really have an interest in learning all that.
Dude, you haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah,
I'm not. Yeah,
you do not know pain until you've played modern Yu-Gi-Oh!
Well, I never will.
If
I
you've
don't
watched-
plan on starting that.
Oh, dude, I'm not going to go into it too much, but you do not know pain until you've sat across someone and had to wait half an hour for them to do a single turn because they keep summoning and doing trap cards and spell cards and doing all of this stuff. The first time I tried to get into modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I was like, I'm out of this. I can't do it.
Yeah,
it's way worse. It's way worse than the Pokemon TCG. If you ever wanted to commit time to it, would be a lot easier to learn. Granted, like I said, I've not got into it properly, but it did seem a lot easier.
yeah.
Probably, but they both kind of sound like they suck.
I agree.
I'm deep in the Pokemon TCG hole. We run like Pokemon TCG events at the store I work at, so I had to get my like professor degree or whatever, so we could like officially run them as like a tournament organizer.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm getting my roommate to like teach me how to play, and now I got like a Mew VMAX deck, which apparently like won worlds or whatever. But yeah, and I'm like full blown. Like I collected before this, and now that I work at a place that sells Pokemon cards, I just like buy a pack every day, and it's like I'm deep.
Oh,
we've
shit.
lost him. It's gone.
Awesome.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I'm in it.
And then the final aspect we're going to be talking about today is going to be what are your thoughts on the Pokemon movies?
I'll let you guys go because
I
I'm
can't
gonna go
speak
on
for
a while.
everyone, obviously, but I have not watched a single Pokemon movie
Really?
except from the first 3. I've watched the first
Oh,
3.
Yeah, they were sick,
Yeah.
dude. The
Yeah.
Mewtwo one where Ash dies.
Yeah, everybody loved
yeah.
Ash dying.
That one was sick, dude. Fucking
Yeah, it was great. I loved it as a
No,
kid. I had the
every-
first 3 on VHS and then never watched another one. But I loved the first 3. They were really good. And the later ones, probably also good. I should probably watch them at some point. But I'm not a big movie person in general. So, yeah, for me personally, not really care.
I watch like some anime and some movies and some shows, just normal entertainment, mainly YouTube, honestly. But
Yeah,
I've watched like all the Pokemon movies. They're so good. I liked every single one of them. The ones that come to mind, though, I mean, Ash dies the Mewtwo one. There's the Celebi one. That one was crazy. Yep. And then for some reason in my head, there's a Jirachi one. I don't know where that's coming from. I don't remember anything about it.
Jirachi Wishmaker, yeah.
But that one was good enough that I remember it. But mainly the Celebi one, I think, is the craziest of all of them. They went.
Are you sure?
Hard. If I'm not misremembering, that's the one with like the spoiler warning for those who haven't watched this yet.
It's 20 years old.
Yeah, skip like a minute ahead or something. That's probably how long it'll take.
Yeah.
But the one with the like grass Groudon thingy, like they had like the weird virus Groudon and everything. That's the Celebi one, right?
No, that's Jirachi Wishmaker.
Oh, okay. So never mind then. All
Why
right,
is it getting lost? Yeah.
So it turns out the one I really like. Okay. Are you sure? Maybe Celebi's in Wishmaker. I don't know. I remember liking the Celebi one a lot. Regardless,
Celebi is the one where Professor Oak Ash goes back in time to like a young Professor Oak. Yeah, and Celebi's there, and Suicune's there.
But I don't.
And then shenanigans happen.
Wasn't the whole point the evil guy catching them and making like a tumbleweed Pokemon using Celebi or whatever?
Yeah, but the
Groudon thing is in okay. The Groudon's in Wishmaker Jirachi. Okay, so those are both sick films. Yeah. Point being, the Pokemon movies are sick.
Yeah.
I remember getting around a lot of them.
The Mewtwo movie is like unironically one in my top 10 movies of all time. Like
so good.
Yeah,
it's probably some of the best video game related movies ever.
Oh yeah,
because it ties in the games pretty well. It has a very interesting story that you just wouldn't expect, and then it's executed well. The animations were good and everything. The sound effect, all that, like everything, it's all good.
You should probably try watching some of the later movies.
I would recommend it. I mean, the latest ones, I saw one with like Zarude or whatever, that the monkey that can set up stealth rocks. I don't know.
Good way to describe it.
Exciting.
Or no, that's not the right guy. No, it's the grass. It's like Grass Dark or something.
Dark,
yeah. I saw a little bit of that one, but I never actually got around to finishing it. I think I just glanced at it as I was walking past something. But I don't know how good the most modern ones are. I'm not up to date, but all the old stuff is great. Mm-hmm. Some of my favorite stuff to watch.
I don't know. The craziest one is definitely the craziest Pokemon movie is the Entei one where Entei kidnaps that girl.
Oh yeah, with the unknown
dad, and then
with the unknown
Entei
and everything.
Kidnaps Delia, Ash's mom, and and Entei's like, "This is your mom now." It's like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, that movie. They were crazy with the movies. They went so hard.
Yeah, they did not have to go that hard.
I forgot to mention that one. For some reason, all these are getting mixed together. Probably because it's been like 10 years, but I remember all of them because those plot points were insane and the execution was also insane. It was just so good. It's so fucking good. I don't know if it's suitable for all ages or if I just liked it as a kid, but I might have to start rewatching them to see if they still hold up. I imagine they do, though.
Sure.
Well, like I was going to say, I'm working on an actual review of all 23 anime movies.
Wow.
It's going to be like 3 hour long video.
It's been a long time coming. The only reason I got into contact with XY here is because we were gonna collaborate on the thing he's talking about, but it ended up, I don't know if it was a solo project or just less people involved. But it's taken you like almost a year at this point, so it's a long time.
I had it planned like a year and a half ago, and I only put in motion a year, and so many things happened in my life to set it back. It's such a weird thing because, to be honest, I could easily condense each review into a couple sentences, but I wanted to give them the proper respect.
I love. There's a lot of videos on YouTube. One of the ones I watched recently is there's a guy talking about a single TF2 map called Dust Bowl for 12 hours straight.
I love that.
That video was great, and videos like that I love whenever they come up on my feed, and I'm excited for when you finish it. I'll probably make a community post or whatever on one of my channels at least.
Hell yeah!
That more people get to see it.
I appreciate it.
I like sharing good videos around.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I do. It does good because it has been like a year in the making, and I haven't uploaded in like 7 months because I've been trying to really crack down and work on it. It should hopefully be out by the end of the year, around Christmas time. And my take on the movies is I'll be honest, a lot of them, while they are very entertaining and they do have those crazy moments you guys were talking about, a lot of them you can leave. Like my top 5 particular order are, well, my number 1 is a Destiny Deoxys because it deals with because of spoilers for those who haven't seen it. Again, Cream keeps saying, 20-year-old shit, you should have seen it at this point. But it's there's like the main Ash isn't the protagonist of that movie. It's a kid called Tori, and it follows his like trauma of like almost like his trauma of like thinking he was being attacked by Pokemon when he was younger, and he's still a kid, but he's a little. And it basically like the movie kind of follows him like slowly trying to get away from that trauma of like being scared by Pokemon. Like anytime he comes in contact with them, like yeah, and it's by any other anime standards, it's like this is like a baby level story, but if like the Pokemon anime in general, but especially it's like some of the early movies, they didn't really touch on stuff like that. They were very safe. The Pokemon anime in general was never about, you know,
I mean,
Full
I don't
Metal
know. I don't know
level.
if I'd call a lot of what I remember seeing as a kid safe, but it was cool. I don't know. I think Virus. I remember being like kind of scared of like Virus Groudon or whatever and all that shit.
Oh no,
That
I
shit
mean,
was straight terrifying as a kid.
I mean more in terms of like adult topics. Like trauma isn't
yeah.
a child would understand, but now
That's
as an
fair.
adult.
I think that differs per personal taste in movie, though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Because I actually generally don't. I mean, depending on the story, but a lot of time stuff like that, I get bored.
yeah.
But
Yeah, without getting too long-winded, I'd say Destiny Deoxys is my favorite. The News a Rude one it's up there because it has a similar story of like a more adult story that you like underlying themes that you.
For some reason, you just planted in my head memories of a like Garatina movie or whatever.
Oh, that one's so good.
Oh yeah, that's like
I
a
just
whole
forgot
trilogy,
about it until now. But yeah,
that's a
either
whole,
way, I think point being the movies are solid.
They are very good. Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to kind of cover isn't related so much directly to Pokemon, but it's kind of talked about often when it comes to Pokemon. Like, what are your thoughts on emulation versus like original hardware? It's a completely separate talking point or debate outside of Pokemon, but I thought it was pretty interesting.
I'm a big advocate for emulation, just to make the older games more accessible. Just because, like, try buying like a copy of Emerald these days, and you're going to be paying like $200
$200
plus.
So like the big ones are like Platinum is like $300 at this point. That's
yeah,
I don't think Platinum's that expensive, but sorry, I work in a used game store.
You'll know better than us.
Black 2, White 2, or Gold, Soul, Silver, like complete, are expensive. Crystal and Emerald. Platinum's the more expensive out of the like
the three of them. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Those big ones.
I've been collecting the old games physically. I just got all the Gen 3 cards, and they're only going up, unfortunately. So I really like having the physical cartridges, but that's only because I'm a gigantic nerd. For like the lay person, I would definitely just recommend emulation. I'm a big advocate for it.
For me, I'd go half and half. What I do is I use backups of my cartridges digitally on the real hardware. So I have like a 3DS, which has, Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, 6, 7, 1, and 2 all on it. It's got everything. And I have a capture card on that bitch. It's great.
Nice.
Awesome.
But I like that. I don't like, as I've gotten older and I've had to move around a lot. I mean, the last 3-4 years, I've been 5 different places. Like not for vacation or anything, just moving physically, new apartment, new whatever.
Yeah, sounds like me.
As I've done that, moving is a pain. Having a lot of physical stuff is a pain. I've gotten a lot more. I don't know. I like having my stuff digitally more and more. But the original hardware has a certain feel to it, especially for the DS games specifically, that the emulator just doesn't reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm a big sucker for original hardware.
Me too.
In general, because I am a game collector. But to be honest, Absalom said, if you just want to relive your old memories, don't fork out $100 to $200 for a single used copy. Yeah. I mean, even you could argue you'd get your money's worth, play them for hours and shiny hunt and do all of that and play for hours. But at the end of the day, maybe you shouldn't be spending that much money on a used game.
I would say instead, like I was saying, spend those $300 on the 3DS and mod it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truth.
I think that's the peak of all of it. I mean, emulation on a PC, look, if you don't want to spend any money, it's fine enough for 90% of people. But there's a lot of things like, I mean, mainly the Pokeathlon's the biggest one for me, where the touchscreen is so essential. But
Yeah.
also
Oh, yeah,
just using
totally.
like a D-pad and having the dual screens instead of one screen. I don't know, the way it's split up and stuff. It just feels better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much nicer. For stuff like the GBA games, honest to God, I could not care less if I was just playing with a controller on an emulator on my PC versus playing on a DS. I just, I have the DS, I might as well play it on there. But for the split screen games especially, so Gen 4 through 7, I think it's just kind of almost necessary. It's so much nicer to just have the physical hardware.
Yeah, thankfully
I agree.
Thankfully the Pokemon games are RPG, so most of their gameplay doesn't really get by playing with a keyboard and mouse, or even some random Xbox controller on your PC. Whereas if you were playing keyboard and mouse, Super Mario 64, it's going to be a bit different, isn't it? It's not going to be exactly like it's not great. So,
it'll definitely be a better experience for sure. But I still do think using like a controller or something with a physical D-pad and buttons, maybe it's nostalgia. It just feels better.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
But then also on like the moral side of emulation, I mean, piracy is a whole nother discussion, and I think for legal reasons, I'm not going to talk about it here. But I think emulating stuff is fine because the physical hardware isn't being produced anymore, or not hardware. Well, hardware as well, but that stuff can kind of be repaired easily.
Yeah.
A lot of the game carts and stuff are hard to repair, can break relatively easily, especially now that some of them are like 30, 40 years old. It's like, I think it's actually just better. Like, I have my stuff backed up. I have physical cartridges and stuff, but I play the digital backup I took of those physical cartridges because I don't want to break them. And even if they do break, I now have them backed up forever, right? So I basically like immortalize my purchase, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Very nice. I think even if you want to play purely physical cartridge, you should maybe back up your game.
Oh,
I know some people pulled their backups from somewhere, but let's not try to talk about that. I don't want this taken down.
Speaking of, you can get reproduction carts for really cheap, and
are those legal?
Well, they're not legal, but I'm just saying, like, if you want a in quotes authentic experience, and even trading to like normal like real cartridges, works. Yeah, usually they work. Just do that. Spend like $20 on Etsy or whatever your country's equivalent is. And
eBay has them too. Yeah. Oh, there's a bunch on eBay, and that's
they're really cheap and they work just fine. I had a repro Fire Red before I got the original one.
Yeah. I'd say for most people, repro versus original doesn't matter as long as it's produced decently well. I know some certain manufacturers make them to break, but a lot of them make just a solid working thing for like $20, which is kind of fair. I mean, if Nintendo were to re-release them for $20 themselves, I'd probably buy it through them, especially if they did it on something like Steam. But like.
Don't count on that.
I want to support them. I bought the Gen 1 and 2 virtual console games that they released because I wanted to support them. I like when there's an official option, but for most of those games, there hasn't been an official option. There probably won't be for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if they're not gonna give you, then they can't really blame you for emulating or doing whatever you want to do.
I think morally that's where I stand. Legally, that's a whole separate argument, but I do think legally you can back up your physical cartridges and use them digitally. As far as I've read, that's not legal advice. Don't take it as legal advice, but I do think that's the case as far as I've heard. But I think that's about where we're going to end it off. Do we have any closing thoughts before we close out the video?
Pokemon is pretty cool. Please don't ruin the Gen 5 remakes.
Please.
I would say maybe hold off on the Gen 5 remakes. Wait like a nice 10-20 years so you can get better at making games again.
Work on your video game skills for a little bit.
Yeah. And then pull them out, and then everyone will be like super hyped for that. or maybe just return to 2D. I know that'd probably piss off half the fan base, but on the other half, I'd be hype.
I'd be hyped for that too.
I'm so ready for it.
So much.
All right. Well, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.